Welcome to my barn. I have a dozen typewriters. I try to keep it at an even dozen.
Nice. Oh, look at that. You got them on both shoulders.
Yeah.
I love
Yes,
that.
indeed. So this one is from a Chicago secretarial school, and this one in 1925. And this one is fun because it was used in World War One and Two
Wow.
by correspondence because it folds up. It's a
Wow.
folding typewriter. Isn't that cool?
Very
That is
cool.
really cool.
Yes. How
Yeah.
much does that weigh about, do you think?
This thing, I don't know, 5 pounds. It's pretty
Okay.
light.
That's
This
so
one's
cool.
a tank.
Yeah, that one you could do bench presses with.
Yes, you could.
Hey everyone, it's the Book Cougars, two middle-aged women on the hunt for a good read. I'm Emily.
And I'm Chris, and we have a very special guest today, Maura Casey, whose new memoir
Saving Ellen
is out now, and it was such a pleasure to meet her. We hope you enjoy meeting her as well and check out her new memoir.
Thank you for having me. Welcome to my barn.
Oh, it's so good to be here. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have
Right.
a lovely copy.
Oh, great. Thank you
Yeah.
for taking a look at my scribbling.
It's really exciting to get the chance to talk to you.
My name is Maura Casey, and I am a lifelong writer. Really, I started to write when I was 12. And I worked for 4 newspapers, including the New York Times, mostly writing opinion. And during one very dull COVID lockdown day, I thought, I've kept diaries for 50 years and maybe I should reread them because for me, it's venting, seeing, writing what I observe. And I finish a notebook and I throw it in the crate and I start a new one. So my poor son had to bring down 3 crates from the attic. And I began to go through them. And I had begun to think about a memoir and had actually written the first chapter. And I was stunned to find, as I reread them, that there was less teenage angst that I expected and more reporting. I was a baby journalist even back then. I was writing all the crazy stuff my mother used to say. Like when she turned to the 6 of us, I was the youngest of 6, and she said, if I didn't have you damn kids holding me back, I'd be a high-class streetwalker in Miami by now. Things like that. So, she had all these wisecracks. I wrote them all down. My father, who was descending into alcoholism, had a lot of scenes. I wrote them all down. And I thought, this isn't bad. And I thought I could find a narrative arc. So I wrote a book about my sister Ellen and what happened when she got kidney disease in the mid 60s when kidney transplants were like walking on the moon. They weren't really done. My father descended into alcoholism, had a spectacular affair with a woman down the street. My mother, who was a World War II Army veteran, just said, we're going to save Ellen. And she did eventually by having a very unusual kidney transplant and donating the kidney. But she hid from us the real ramifications of that decision. She filtered the medical information. And I kind of had to write a book to figure it all out after all these years. What helped me was that Ellen had a very young, brilliant doctor from England, Mary Hawking, sister of Stephen Hawking. And she's retired in England, and we had some Skype conversations. I found her through her brother's foundation, and she kind of told me the rest of the story because she remembered it very well. And her parents had kept all of her letters from when she was in America, more specifically in Buffalo, where I grew up. So that's the story of my book.
Which we should show you right here.
Right.
And there's a lovely photo of your sister Ellen that I thought would be fun to show in the back of the book.
Yes, that's when she was a coach for the West Side Rowing Club. and wearing her West Side painter's cap very proudly.
So it's interesting that when you pull down, I was trying to think if I was not a diary keeper or a journal keeper. I know many memoirists are. Did you have a lot of trepidation when you started reading them? Were you like reading with one eye open and one eye closed?
Well, I thought, oh boy, this is going to be all about, the D I got in Latin and the latest crush, you know, but it really kind of wasn't. There was some of that, a little bit of that, but it was mostly trying to make sense of my world. And eventually, of course, I did. But a couple of the diary entries were written so vividly, I took them virtually verbatim from the diary and put them in the book, which, ain't bad, seeing as I was writing as a teenager.
Right.
Um, but mostly, I became very grateful to my teenage self for giving me my mother back. I had forgotten how funny she was. And there were days that I kind of felt like, mom was at my elbow and my sister Ellen was on the other side helping me spell the big words. And it also enabled me to have a COVID project while I was going to be home all, in lockdown. We stayed home so much. By the time 2021 rolled around, our cars had actually, the batteries were dead and we had to get them jumped. We got everything sent in. But this I could do. I could write for several hours every day, and it kept me going and it kept me optimistic. And then I could do all the research and get to know my friend Mary Hawking again. So it ended up being a great project.
That's cool. I have to ask because I love, well, we both do. We both love stationery shops and notebooks and pens and everything. Do you have preferred notebooks and pens that you use in
Oh,
your
I go bananas over notebooks and pens. For a while, there's a catalog called Levinger's that has very expensive pens, and I was busting the budget by buying some. I prefer blank notebooks. I've got a lot of them around. There's another company called Blackwing, which
Mhm.
sells beautiful reporters notebooks, and I've got those. So yeah, generally blank pages is my preferred thing. I don't like lines, and I still write a couple of times a week.
Nice. Good to know. Do you have any projects going on right now that you were wanting to talk about?
I've been wondering about what my next project will be. I've been contemplating writing what's called braided stories. You write a story and then the characters pop up in other stories. So I've been thinking about that. But right now I'm trying to hope, pray, and keep the flames going of this book. It was just published yesterday.
Yeah.
So when I see how well this does, I guess I'll start on something else, but nothing really has come to mind yet. So I'm open to suggestions.
Well, one of the things I love about what you just told us is that you're the youngest in your family, and we happen to be youngest as well. And I think we are the observers
Yes.
of what happens in our families. So I love that you're now, sharing this family story. Doesn't surprise me that you kept those journals and all those details.
We're the oppressed, the youngest. We're the ones who, have to pick up the pieces. Everybody else gets to escape the house early.
Yes.
There we are. My brothers and sisters used to call me the caboose, the last car on a long train.
Yes, forced to
Yes.
listen and watch. Yeah.
Well, we're there for aging parents, right? Everybody
Yes.
else gets to go out and live their life. And if there's somebody who's younger who can stick around, we end up sticking around a little more, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So this is fabulous.
Yes.
It's so great to meet you. And we should let viewers know too that you're a Connecticut-based writer now.
Indeed, I am in Connecticut. I have been in Connecticut for about 35 years. I worked at a paper in Massachusetts, and the day of New London asked me to go there, and I worked there for 17 years, and then the New York Times came calling, so I worked there. So, but I did not have to move to New York, thank God. But I am closer to Rhode Island. It was a very interesting commute. I'm not that far from Rhode Island, so it was a bit of a long commute, but I had a genial boss and Gail Collins who said to me, "I know where you live. Come in like twice a week." So I was able to swing it without moving.
That's
That's
great.
great.
Yeah.
And
So
you still write on your Substack, correct?
indeed, Casey's Catch, anyone can sign on to listen to my rants, which is a mix. I chose Casey's Catch because I thought of it as casting out a wide net, you know. I like to fish. So that's what I do, and I write about living on a small farm, which I do. My husband turned our 10 acres into an organic farm when he took early retirement about 13 years ago, and he is Pete's Produce Farm. He grows organic vegetables, so it keeps him busy, and I get to watch. I will pick, I will cook. Occasionally, I'll sell, but I don't want to roll around in the fields. Let him do that, you know, with his big machines. Go for it. Have fun. But that's the extent of my involvement. That's his thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's nice. That's good. That gives you time to write, roll around in your journals.
Exactly. We have 2 dogs and 1 cat, and I refuse any barn animals because I absolutely know that I will end up shoveling something I don't want to shovel. Draw a line in the sand somewhere.
That's right. Boundaries. Boundaries
That's
are
right.
good. Well, we also thought we would ask you what you're currently reading.
Well, actually, I was just looking. I very often listen to audiobooks. And I also have, was rereading the other day Gallows Lane by my friend Lisa Brownell, who's also in Connecticut. She wrote a historical novel based on real events in New London, where the only woman who's ever been executed in Connecticut was hanged. She put a happier ending on it, which made me very happy. I was rereading that the other day and thinking how good that was. But I also read a whole lot of stuff through audiobooks. And I was reading After the Hurricane the other day, which is by Leah Franqui, and it's about a woman looking for her father in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria. And she's Puerto Rican, and I loved it because I was exposed to that culture, which I haven't been too much in reading. It was a beautiful book. I really liked that a lot. I also read The Wide, Wide Sea by Hampton Sides, which is a book about exploration that took place. Captain Cook and all kinds of folks. So that was great. But I love anything by Kristen Hanna. I'm kind of addicted to her books. I can't figure out how every book she writes is totally different than the one before. I
Mhm.
mean, she must just love to research new things, because she'll have a book about, a ranch out west, and then she'll have a book about Alaska, or she'll have a book about a person who survived the siege of Leningrad, and I'm like, how does this woman do it? Or her latest, the women from a Vietnam War nurse, which was really opened my eyes to that. And I love that because my mother was in the military as well. And so was my sister. So all good. What are you ladies reading?
Oh,
Well, The Women was one of my top 10 reads of last year. I loved that. And I read both paper and the audiobook as well. Really good audiobook. And I'm currently reading and listening to actually Storyworthy about storytelling from Matthew Dix, who is a multi-time Moth Story Slam winner. And he talks about the art of storytelling and how it's different than, it's not like the idea of a fable, people telling stories throughout time. It's actually personal storytelling and how there's a real art to it. And some people do it well and some people don't. And his job in this book is to kind of teach you how to do it well. And I'm really enjoying it. As you might imagine, the audiobook's really good because he's a storyteller.
Yes.
So he narrates it. Highly recommend. And I feel like it's useful. He talks about how people who are, salespeople take his story writing courses, and he doesn't call them courses, he calls them seminars, but he has started a story-worthy lab on YouTube that we can put a link down below for people to look at. It's useful in all walks of life to be able to tell a good story around the dinner table or on stage.
Yes.
Mhm.
Do you find that the experience is entirely different between audio, listening to it by ear, and reading it? Do you get more out of one than the other?
I do actually. And I think sometimes it has to do with whether it's nonfiction or fiction. This one is nonfiction. I feel like I can follow nonfiction a little bit better. Sometimes with fiction, my mind wanders. So I have to go back and forth between actual physical reading and listening. It depends a lot on the narrator, I think.
Yeah.
In this case, when I was cooking, I had a day of cooking and I was listening to this, and there were a couple times where he said things and I was like, oh, I have to write that down. So I immediately went to the library that night and got this copy and started to go through it. But then what was funny, and I don't know if you have this experience, it was kind of frustrating because I couldn't find what he was talking about. So then I got the ebook because
Right.
you can search it.
Search and replace,
And
right.
I searched for the word
Mhm.
because he talked about how stories are like facets of a diamond. Everybody
Mm.
has their own, well, I think I actually ended up marking it. Let's see if I can actually find
Like
it.
their own angle or something, or
Yeah, he says, a story is like a diamond with many facets. Everyone has a different relationship to it. If you can find a way of making your particular facet of the story compelling, you can tell that story as your own. Otherwise, leave the telling to someone else.
Wow.
And I heard that and I was like, oh, I gotta mark that. So that's sometimes problematic for me with audiobooks. I'll be out walking or doing something and I can't figure out a way to mark it,
Mhm.
Yes, you can kind of bookmark it, but it's not the same. And I
Mhm.
often find in a really compelling book, especially one that's a little bit of a reference book, like that one might be, I've got to get the hard copy because I
Mhm.
Yeah.
just can't depend on the audio experience alone.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with everything here said because I love audiobooks too. And I think I've done that. It's like I have to get the book now to be able to pull that quote and see it in context. Uh, and then the ebooks, it's beautiful that we can search those and find exactly
I know
what
it
you're
took me
looking
like
for.
5 seconds to find it, and I thought, "This is amazing."
Hmm.
Isn't
Yeah.
that incredible?
Yeah,
It
it
is.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and he's another Connecticut writer.
He
Is
is.
it really?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, and he's a teacher also, an elementary school teacher, and he's won Teacher of the Year awards for the state and things like that, and he's written 4 novels, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
he's accomplished. Yeah.
mhm. Well,
I'm
the book oh, sorry, Mara.
And I'm impressed. I don't have the wherewithal or the talent, and probably not the intelligence to write fiction. So anyone who argues with what I wrote about in my memoir, I'll just be able to say, I can't write fiction. I wish I could. My characters just sit there and stare at me.
I know, then you have to put your characters through bad things,
Yes,
bad
I know,
people.
and I
Who
feel
wants to
bad.
do that? Right. Yeah, I know. Making them suffer.
That's right.
Well, I am going to be reading this weekend Old New York. These
Oh,
are 4 novellas from Edith Wharton.
Edith Wharton was awesome.
Yeah. Now, she's not a Connecticut writer, but she did receive an honorary doctorate from Yale in New Haven. She was the first. And I had recently read an essay somebody wrote about how she didn't want to come for it because she was living in France at the time, and the librarian who wrote to her said, "You owe it to the public to come and be present and everything." So she came to New Haven. But these are 4 novellas about old New York, and each novella deals with a different time period,
Mhm.
the 1840s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And for those who may not know, Edith Wharton came from a very wealthy family, the Joneses, and they are the family that originated the phrase "keeping up with the Joneses." So I'm definitely looking forward to this. I enjoy her novels and her short fiction, her short stories. Emily and I recently read a bunch of her ghost stories. So
Oh,
I'm looking forward to see how these novellas pan out. I plan on reading one a day. So
great.
yeah, I'll
Mm,
report back about those.
yeah.
Do you? So you enjoy Edith Wharton?
Well, I am not that familiar with her stuff, but I've read about her life and I've admired her from afar. So now you're inspiring me to start looking her up and writing more about her.
Yeah, yeah.
Is she
She's
the one who did she win the Pulitzer Prize?
yes
Was
for
it
the Age of
Innocent?
yeah, Age of
That's it.
Innocence. Yeah,
If this is correct, I hope it is. I read that she told Sinclair Lewis, who did not win the Pulitzer Prize but won the Nobel Prize, that she wished that he had won it because the judges had no idea what her book was about. So I thought, I like her. I
Yeah.
like you already. So I've got to catch up on some of my reading with her.
yeah.
That's interesting. I've never heard that story. Have you heard that?
I
I've
heard something about there was controversy between like people thought he would get it and then she did, and of
got
course there's always gender issues around awards like that, especially during that time period,
Yeah,
the
for
20s.
sure.
Yeah,
Huh.
to wonder if she even won anything because of the gender issues. But
right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Since you have a bit of interest in military matters, the most recent novel of Wharton's I've read is called The Son at the Front,
huh,
which is about focusing on a father whose son is at the front during World War One in Paris. And Wharton lived in Paris and France, I should say, before, during, and after World War One, and was really involved with efforts to help wounded soldiers and civilians who were suffering from the collateral hardships of the war and everything. So she also wrote some nonfiction around
huh.
World War One that you might be interested in.
Yeah, I'd love to read that stuff. Now I know what I'll be doing this weekend. I'm gonna be downloading Edith Wharton.
And then if you really wanna just go all Edith Wharton, you can drive up to Mass and go to the Mount, which is a
Mhm.
beautiful place to visit. It was one of her homes.
I heard about that place. Did you ever visit? Did either of
Oh,
you?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been there many
Yeah, we
times.
love it. We're
Yeah.
members actually, so
Yeah.
we can't wait to get up there again when they reopen for the spring.
Ooh, another a road trip. Road
Yeah.
trip, road
Yeah.
trip.
Yes.
The
Oh,
New York Times asked me to go to the Adams Family Library once, I believe, in Quincy, and it covers both Adamses, John Adams and his son, John Quincy. And it
mm,
was absolutely fascinating because I didn't realize this. John Quincy was had a genius for languages. He spoke 15 languages.
wow.
And so there was all these books in different languages that he could just pick up and read. Now, I could barely read it, speak English. So I had 3 excruciating years of Latin. It was like being waterboarded. So I'm not good at that stuff, but
Same.
I'm always impressed by somebody who is.
Yeah, Edith Wharton had books in her library in multiple languages
Mhm.
because she was fluent in, was it French and Italian or
Italian, some German, I think.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably
Yeah.
studied Latin too, I would
Yeah.
imagine from that time
Smart
period.
people.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Well,
English. It's the only thing I know. What can I
well,
say?
now I want to go to that library,
I
the Adams
know.
Library.
Where's
Really
that located?
interesting.
You said Quincy?
Quincy?
I believe it is in Quincy, either that or Braintree. Got to look it up. I wrote about it for the New York Times. I have always been an admirer of Abigail Adams, of
Mhm.
course, who kind of ran the joint when her husband was in Europe and was really smart. And I always quote her when she told her husband, if you do not remember the ladies, we will foment rebellion. And I'm all about fomenting rebellion. I got to tell you, I think I'm going to have t-shirts saying that, I will foment rebellion. I love that phrase.
Yeah, I'd buy one.
Yeah, me too. Let
Yeah.
us know when they're ready. Well, we are so glad you stopped by to say hello and tell us about your book, Saving Ellen. It's available now. We will put links down below. Get yourself a copy, buy one for your friends, all your family members.
Cool.
Thank
Thank you
you
very
so
much
much.
for having me. And I have to tell you that my daughter told me that she listens to you guys. So you're hitting a very good mid-30s demographic with your show.
Oh,
Oh,
lovely.
that's
Thank you
fabulous.
so much.
Thanks, Maura. It's great to meet you.
Great to meet you two ladies. Enjoy.